Welcome back to the Little Black Whiskey Book. Today's page is dedicated to the Nc'nean Distillery once again, only this time we have their special release from their Quiet Rebels edition dedicated to Gordon. So, their special releases, especially in the Quiet Rebels series, I know they have a decent number of special releases. I kind of love that about them. They just come up with these wild ideas and make small batches of them and see what happens. But for this series, this is a nice opaque dark glass. I know the other one is clear, but this one you can still see all of the same beautiful artwork. It's just absolutely lovely. And if you're unfamiliar with the Nc'nean Distillery, they're independently owned. They've only been around for, maybe 4 years of making distilled spirits themselves, but they actually started in 2013 in terms of the idea being born, the fundraising, the construction of the building, and the distillation in 2017 started up, and then the actual first bottlings were in 2020. So they're still fairly new, but they're incredibly exciting. That's why they think of themselves as being, a bit rebellious, whereas they're doing things a little different. So first of all, they are organic. So the barley that they're sourcing is from Scotland. It's from the other coast. So the distillery is on the west coast, and they're sourcing barley from a farm on the east coast. And when you're getting organic barley, the grains are smaller, the yield is less, the flavor is, however, more concentrated. So there are some benefits, but it does end up being a little more costly. They do sustainable farming practices, and they're really giving back to nature as opposed to taking from it. I do go into more detail about the history of Nc'nean, how they got started, and some more of their devotion to sustainability in my previous video on the brand, so I'll link that down below. It's worth checking out. In there I explore their flagship expression, just kind of the one you can always get, even if there are different batches, and there's variation in there. So you can always look for the batch number and look it up online to see what comprises that particular bottle, which is pretty cool. But today, let's talk about what comprises the Gordon whiskey. So this is a 48.5% alcohol. It was a mixture of 3 different whiskeys in 3 different barrels. So we have 19% from whiskey that was aged in ex-sherry casks. This is very high for Nc'nean. They don't usually use anything that high, and when I was at the presentation and they were talking about the different whiskeys, they don't know that they would ever go more than 19%, so this is as much of a bit of a sherry kick as you're going to get from this brand, most likely. And then the majority of the whiskey in here was aged in the STR barrels, and these are ex-Bordeaux barrels, and the STR stands for shaved, toasted, recharred. So you're going to get a lot more of the fruity components from there, and then you're still going to have a lot of dryness from the sherry to balance it out. And this was kind of fascinating. I haven't seen very many whiskeys that were aged in this sort of barrel, but 7% is from Rivesaltes. I don't know if I'm saying that right. It's a French, kind of a dessert wine, so it's going to be a little more sweet, a little more nutty. So I'm looking forward to trying that and seeing if we can get some, I don't know what kind of nuttiness are we going to find, like an almondy kind of nuttiness, hazelnut, I don't know. I'm excited to try it. And they've only made 8,688 bottles of this. It's a little hard to find because it's been available for a while now, so it's sold out online. You can maybe find it here or there, certainly possibly on the secondary market. I was lucky enough to get a bottle being in the Chicago area. They're really into whiskey, into sourcing good whiskeys, partnering with brands, having special limited releases. So if you're in Chicago or the vicinity, definitely check out Vinny's for the whiskey selection. They do a really great job with it. So the distillery manager, Gordon, when he was asked what he wanted in a whiskey, said he wanted it to be the kind of rich, fruity kind of whiskey that leaves you wanting to have another sip, right? You don't feel like you've had enough. You're like, maybe just a little bit more. So the master blender came up with this very special and unique whiskey made for Gordon himself. Let's try it out. I do love these bottles. The artwork on them is incredible, and it is a water-based paint, so when you go to recycle the bottle, it's easily recyclable. Everything on here is paint. There's a little bit of a sticker, right, for a barcode, and then a little bit of tape around here showing the Quiet Rebel series. So if you want to take those 2 things off, it's very recyclable. So we have a nice color on this one. The flagship variety is a little lighter in color. I think this one has significantly more sherry. The kind of like default, I guess I'll say, like the normal, I don't know if widely available is quite right either, but if you're going to go into a store and look for a Nc'nean, you're likely going to find, so this one has 19% sherry, and the other more normal, easy to find one is the 2% sherry. So you have the nice color from that. There is more of a richness here. Now, even though this is Scotch, Nc'nean doesn't do any peating. Again, for sustainability reasons, right? They don't want to be burning what they consider a fossil fuel. I mean, peat is a fossil fuel. It's more renewable, at least, than oil or something, or coal. But, you know, it's still a fossil fuel. I think it's going to be more of an almond in terms of the nuttiness. I'm super excited to try that out. It doesn't necessarily smell super sweet, which is interesting. Considering like the things that are going into it, I'd expect there to be sweetness, but you don't necessarily see it on the nose. It almost has like a syrupy quality to it. Like it feels kind of thick. That's really nice. It isn't the kind of sweet though where you're sitting here thinking like, oh, is it honey? Is it caramel? It's really just more sweet in the way fruit or a plum or something like that is sweet, where it isn't over the top. It's just a nice balanced sweetness, maybe from the sherry adding so much dryness to it, because you're definitely getting some dryness from the sherry. I think that's just balancing the sweetness in a really pleasant way. And yeah, I feel like there's that little bit of almond on the back end, and then in the finish I still notice like that little bit of saltiness from the proximity to the ocean, which I just love in some of the scotches that are from right along the ocean. And the heat is definitely more like the white pepper sort of spicy heat to it. So I feel like this is a wonderful transitional into fall sort of whiskey. It's not too sweet. You're really kind of losing that sort of summer honey sweetness, and you're getting more into the fall vibes, but it's not really, like I don't get baking spice notes out of it, so we're not in like the height of fall baking season. We're just in that transition period. There's a real richness to it, like this vanilla, I don't know, like almost sort of a thick, yeah, I think a lot of people will call it like creme brulee, but I don't know that I'm quite getting like that sort of yolkiness. It's just like a heavy whipping cream or something with vanilla in it, right? Like it's not so much that it's into like creme brulee territory, but we've got some of the components of that here for sure. So that makes it, I feel like, easier to drink, right? It's not so much that you're sitting there like, ooh, I need a minute after that. Like Gordon said, he wanted you to want that next sip, so it doesn't feel like it's too much. There is some heat to it. There's just this more sort of stewed fruit, but not like berries, like, you know, sort of the more darker, moodier fruits that you can get in the fall. It's just lovely. I think good luck surviving. It only has to make it until October when the release for Amy comes out. So we'll see. I do want to save some of it just because it'd be fun to have as a comparison with the Amy version, which is coming out in a few months. Please let me know if you've tried this one, what your thoughts are, if you're also just as excited to try the Amy version of the Quiet Rebel series that's coming up in October. Thank you for joining me as we write this page in the Little Black Whiskey Book. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe so you can check us out as we write more pages and fill up this little notebook.